There's a truth that very few dare to speak aloud, and even fewer are willing to live. It's this: not all chosen ones walk in light. Some of us were born in the dark, shaped by it, forged in the fire of pain, rejection, chaos, and silence. And yet, we're still chosen, not despite the dark, but because of it. If you're watching this right now, if you felt like the outcast, the black sheep, the misunderstood one who doesn't fit into the clean spiritual narratives of light and love, then maybe deep down you know you are one of the dark chosen ones. And this message isn't just for your ears, it's for your soul, because God didn't forget about you. He gave you gifts, not the kind that sparkle in the sun, but the kind that awaken when everything else falls apart. You've been taught to fear your shadow, to silence it, to hide it. You've been told that your anger, your grief, your power, your intensity, your silence, even your visions are too much. And so you've spent years trying to become lighter, softer, more digestible. But in doing that, you've buried your most sacred weapons. You've dulled your own fire. And the truth is, the world doesn't need more people pretending to be pure. The world needs you fully activated, fully embodied, fully aware of the divine gifts hidden in your shadow. The first shadow gift is divine sensitivity. But let's be real, it didn't feel like a gift when it first showed up. It felt like a curse. You felt everything. You walked into rooms and felt energy shift before anyone said a word. You absorbed the pain of others like some kind of emotional sponge, and no one told you how to handle it. They called you dramatic, moody, unstable. But you weren't weak, you were tuned in. God wired you to sense the invisible, to read between the lines, to pick up on what others miss. Your nervous system is an antenna for the divine, and while it can feel overwhelming, it's also what makes you a seer, a guide, a spiritual warrior who can walk into an energetic battlefield and know what's really going on. But only if you stop numbing that sensitivity and start honoring it. The second gift is rage as divine fire. I know rage is the most demonized emotion in the spiritual world. But what if I told you your rage is not a wound, it's a weapon? Not to destroy, but to cut through illusion. Rage is the fire God placed in you to protect your soul. It's what rises when your spirit is being disrespected. It's what ignites when you're being called to action. And yes, when left unprocessed, it can erupt in ways that hurt. But when harnessed, when understood, it becomes a laser of truth. It burns away the fake. It confronts injustice. It says no more when the world tries to silence you. Have you ever asked yourself, what is my anger trying to protect? That's where the gift lives. That's where your path begins. The third gift is sacred solitude. You were isolated for a reason. Not because you're unworthy, not because you're cursed, but because God needed your attention. You were pulled away from the noise so you could hear Him directly. Every lonely night, every friendship that fell apart, every time you felt abandoned, it was all a clearing. And in that silence, something ancient awakened in you. A knowing, a voice, a connection that didn't rely on words or rituals, but on presence. You know things not because someone taught you, but because you remembered. Solitude didn't break you, it built you. And now, when others are lost in the chaos, you have the capacity to stand in stillness and listen. That's a gift. That's spiritual leadership. The fourth gift is shadow sight. You see what others don't, not just in the world but in people. You see their masks. You feel the lies they tell themselves. You sense the hidden pain behind their smiles. Sometimes you wish you didn't. Sometimes you wish you could just take people at face value and move on. But you can't, because your vision is calibrated to truth. Your third eye doesn't just see light, it sees what's hiding in the dark. That's why you can't be manipulated for long. That's why fake friends can't stay around you. That's why people either love you or fear you, because being around you means being seen. And not everyone is ready for that, but those who are, you'll change their lives. You'll guide them through shadows you've already walked. The fifth gift is emotional alchemy. You've been through things that should have destroyed you. Betrayals, losses, breakdown after breakdown. But somehow, each time you came back stronger, not because you ignored the pain, but because you transformed it. You felt it fully. You let it wreck you, and then you rebuilt. That's alchemy. That's the ability to turn grief into wisdom, pain into power, chaos into clarity. And now, when others are drowning in their emotions, you have the gift of transmutation. You can hold their pain without absorbing it. You can mirror their truth without judgment. You can walk them through their own healing because you've done it the hard way. And nothing teaches like embodied experience. The sixth gift is the power to dismantle false systems. You were never meant to fit into this world. School felt wrong. Religion felt shallow. Authority figures made you question everything. And for a long time you thought the problem was you. But it wasn't. You were born to disrupt, to question, to break the matrix. God placed a blueprint inside you that doesn't align with this superficial, money-driven, control-based reality. And now that you're older, you're starting to see the patterns. You're starting to decode the lies. Your soul knows that the systems around us are not sacred, they're structures of illusion. And your presence alone begins to unravel them. That's why some people are uncomfortable around you. You trigger their programming. You shake their foundations. But that's your gift. You're not here to be liked. You're here to liberate. The seventh gift is the call to initiate others. Maybe you've noticed how people come to you when they're lost. How they open up to you without knowing why. How your words, your presence, your silence can change the entire atmosphere of a room. That's not random. That's divine design. You're an activator, a mirror, a spiritual initiator. Not because you've read every book, but because you've lived every lesson. Your wounds became wisdom. Your darkness became medicine. And now, just by being who you are, you give others permission to face their own shadows. You don't need a pulpit. You don't need a platform. You are the temple. You are the sermon. Your life is the initiation. But here's the catch: you can't access these shadow gifts until you stop rejecting them, until you stop trying to be someone else, until you say yes to the exact version of yourself that the world told you to hide. So let me ask you something deep, something terrifying, something sacred. What if the parts of you you've been most ashamed of are actually the keys to your divine mission? What if the pain was never punishment but preparation? You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not too much. You're a dark chosen one, and your time has come.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
There is a reason why you never quite fit. A reason why every room you entered made you feel like a stranger, even among those who claimed to love you. A reason your presence was too intense, your silence too loud, your truth too sharp. You didn't choose to be the outsider. You were chosen to be the outsider. And in a world built on illusion, the truth teller is always cast out. But here's the sacred twist that most never understand. Rejection is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your rebirth. From the time you were young, you felt it, that subtle but constant disconnection. You were in the world, but not of it. You noticed things others didn't. You questioned what others blindly accepted, and while they laughed, you listened. While they followed, you observed. And when you tried to conform, something in you would shatter. God never allowed you to stay comfortable in falsehood. And because of that, you were misunderstood. You were labeled difficult, rebellious, too emotional, too intense, too strange. But the truth is, you were too real. And so life began to shape you not with comfort, but with contrast. Every betrayal was a carving. Every heartache was a chisel. Every failure, every fall, every moment you were left behind or pushed aside, it wasn't punishment. It was precision work. You were being stripped of everything that wasn't yours. Every identity that wasn't real. Every mask you wore to survive. You were not being broken, you were being rewired. Designed for something deeper, something bigger, something holy. Let me ask you something. What if the very people who rejected you were only playing their role in your awakening? What if their absence created the silence you needed to hear your own soul? What if their betrayal was the divine permission slip for you to stop performing and finally become? You see, the outcast is not weak. The outcast is free. And when you stop trying to be chosen by those who cannot see you, you begin to see yourself. This is where the real transformation begins. Not when you find acceptance, but when you realize you no longer need it. That's when your power comes online. Because the same pain that made you feel unworthy becomes the exact doorway into your authenticity. The moment you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What truth in me scares them?" you take your power back. You begin to understand that rejection wasn't personal. It was prophetic. It was God's way of saying, "I'm calling you higher, but you can't rise while clinging to the familiar." So he cleared the space. He removed the distractions. He let them go. Not to hurt you, but to wake you up. Because your destiny is not to blend in. It's to stand out. Not to be accepted, but to become the example. The example of what happens when someone stops waiting to be chosen and chooses themselves. And yes, the path of the outcast is lonely, but it is also sacred. Because in that loneliness, you meet your shadow. You sit with your pain. You face your fear. And eventually you find your voice. A voice that doesn't need to be loud to be heard. A voice that doesn't need approval to speak truth. That voice is your gift. That voice is your sword. And when you wield it with love and clarity, it cuts through the lies not just for you, but for everyone who hears it. This is why your life has looked the way it has. Why nothing ever came easy. Why you had to learn things the hard way. Because you are meant to lead from the inside out. You are meant to embody wisdom, not borrow it. You are meant to carry energy that shifts rooms, not just words that impress minds. And for that to happen, you had to be emptied. You had to be undone. You had to be purified by fire. So if you're still in the dark, still feeling like you don't belong, I'm here to remind you. The cocoon always feels like a tomb until the wings emerge. What you're feeling isn't death, it's transformation. You are being prepared for something your logical mind can't even comprehend. And when the time comes when you finally rise, you'll look back and realize that every no was a divine redirection. Every closed door was sacred protection. Every ending was a beginning in disguise. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. And the ones who cast you out, one day they'll look at you and feel something they can't explain. Not regret, not guilt, but reverence. Because you didn't just survive, you rose. You didn't just heal, you evolved. You turned your rejection into revelation, your pain into purpose, your silence into sacred sound. And here's the final truth. The outcast becomes the oracle. The one who was pushed to the edge becomes the one who sees beyond the veil. You were never meant to walk their path. You were meant to blaze your own. And every scar on your soul is a map to others who are still lost. So wear them with pride. Speak with authority. Move with purpose. Because your time is no longer coming, it's now. There is a truth so sacred, so hidden, that most people live their entire lives without ever touching it. God hides inside your pain. Not around it, not after it, inside it. And until you learn how to sit with your pain, not as a victim but as a seeker, you will keep missing the divine presence that has been with you all along, disguised in the very thing you've been trying to escape. The greatest lie of modern spirituality is that God only exists in the light, the sanitized, the beautiful. But the real ones know He whispers in the ache. He speaks in the silence. He reveals Himself when everything else has been stripped away. Pain is not the absence of God. Pain is the presence of God in unfamiliar form. When you were abandoned, when you were heartbroken, when you were betrayed and left wondering what you did wrong, He was there. Not punishing you, not testing you, transforming you. Because here's the paradox that breaks the ego. The pain you resist the most is the portal to the version of you God is calling forth. That's why He didn't remove it. That's why the prayer didn't work the way you wanted. That's why the healing didn't come overnight. Because your pain isn't just something to heal from. It's something to mine for gold. But let's be honest, pain doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like drowning in questions with no answers. It feels like shouting into the silence and getting nothing back. It feels like watching everyone else rise while you stay stuck, broken, unseen. And in those moments, it's easy to believe you've been forgotten. But what if that silence wasn't abandonment? What if it was a sacred pause? What if God was quiet not because he was far, but because he was close enough to trust you with the lesson? We've been programmed to think that blessings only come wrapped in comfort. But some blessings come wrapped in fire, in loss, in grief, in confusion. And only those with eyes to see and hearts to endure will recognize them for what they are. Do you remember the moment that shattered you? The moment you thought you'd never come back from? Look at you now. Still breathing, still standing. Changed, yes. Scarred, maybe, but wiser, stronger, more awake. That was divine darkness. That was God, showing you who you really are underneath everything you thought you needed. The truth is, we don't awaken through comfort. We awaken through contrast, through the tearing down of everything false. And that tearing hurts. It rips through your identity, your beliefs, your ego's sense of control. But what's left afterward? Stillness, clarity, power. Not the loud kind, not the kind that needs to prove anything, but the quiet, grounded kind that can hold space for chaos without flinching. That's what pain gives you: emotional resilience, spiritual stamina, divine clarity. You don't get that from books. You get that from breaking and rebuilding, again and again. And yet, most people run from pain the moment it knocks. They numb it, bury it, distract themselves from it. But you, the dark, chosen one, you were built to face it, to walk into the cave others refuse to enter, because you know something they don't. Your power lives there. And when you stop resisting and start listening, you'll begin to hear the whispers, not in your ears, but in your bones, in your intuition, in your dreams. That is God, not above you, not watching from a distance, inside you, speaking through your wounds, guiding you through the dark. But here's where it gets even deeper. When you finally stop fighting the darkness and sit with it like an old friend, something miraculous happens. You begin to change the way you see everything. Pain is no longer something to avoid. It becomes a compass, a teacher, a sacred messenger. You start to understand that every heartbreak was a redirection. Every delay was protection. Every loss was a clearing. And every time you thought God was silent, he was actually reconstructing your soul. Have you ever noticed that your greatest wisdom came not when you were winning, but when you were broken open? That's not an accident. That's design. God doesn't waste suffering. He codes it with revelation. And the deeper your pain, the deeper your capacity to carry light. Not the performative kind, not the Instagrammable kind, but the kind of light that's earned in the shadows. That kind of light humbles you. It softens your judgment. It deepens your love. Because you know what it feels like to be lost, and you never want anyone to feel that way alone again. So you become a vessel, a guide, a lighthouse. Not because you memorized the map, but because you've walked the terrain barefoot. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you chosen. And that's why God trusted you with pain, not to destroy you, but to awaken you, to call you deeper, to equip you with a kind of empathy, wisdom, and strength that cannot be faked. So let me ask you a question that has the power to change your life. What if the pain you've been trying to escape is the very place where your divine assignment begins? What if your purpose isn't found in avoiding the dark, but in learning how to carry the light through it? You weren't abandoned. You were anointed. You weren't cursed. You were called. And every tear you've shed in the dark was watering the roots of the person you're now becoming. It's time to stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, what power is trying to rise through this pain? Because once you ask that, the darkness doesn't own you anymore. You own it. God hides in the dark not to test your faith, but to awaken your vision. And now you see. Here's the truth no one tells you until you're ready to hear it. You don't become the light by chasing it. You become the light by accepting the shadow, not running from it, not denying it, not trying to fix it, but by sitting with it, listening to it, owning it. Your shadow isn't a flaw. It isn't your enemy. It's the deepest part of your soul that got buried under shame, rejection, fear, and silence. And the moment you stop trying to kill it and start loving it, everything changes. Most people spend their entire lives trying to escape the parts of themselves that make them uncomfortable. They try to heal to be more acceptable. They try to forgive to forget. They try to love only the light within them, hoping that if they shine bright enough, the darkness will disappear. But it never does, because it's not supposed to. The shadow doesn't come to destroy your light. It comes to complete it. You were never meant to be just one side of the coin. You were meant to be whole. When you finally stop fighting the shadow and begin to embrace it, you unlock a power that no external validation can touch. That power is wholeness. The kind of wholeness that radiates authenticity. The kind that makes people feel safe just by being near you, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You've been through the fire. You've faced your demons. You've owned your story. And in doing so, you've become the embodiment of truth. And truth, real truth, is light. You don't need to force anything anymore. You don't need to prove your worth, earn your place, or convince anyone of your value. When you've integrated your shadow, you walk differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself with a quiet, grounded confidence that doesn't demand attention, it commands respect. Because people can feel it. They can feel that you're not pretending. You've made peace with who you are, both the holy and the haunted. And that kind of presence is magnetic. It wasn't the light that taught you how to survive. It was the shadow. It was the nights you thought you wouldn't make it. The mornings when you rose anyway. The moments when you were cracked wide open and somehow still kept loving. Still kept believing. Still kept showing up. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you chosen. Not your perfection, but your resilience. Not your image, but your essence. And now, you're not just someone who has healed. You are someone who heals. Your very presence activates others. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've lived the questions. You've walked through the valley and came back with sacred fire in your chest. You don't just talk about light, you are the light. Not because you avoided the dark, but because you walked through it with your eyes open. So I ask you now, with everything you've learned, everything you've survived, everything you've become, are you ready to stop hiding? Are you ready to wear your wholeness like a crown? To stop dimming to fit and start glowing to lead? Because the world doesn't need more polished performances. It needs real ones. Those who have danced with their shadow and emerged as lighthouses, not because they were untouched by the storm, but because they are the storm and the calm it births. This is your unveiling. Not a new version of you, but the true version. The one who doesn't shrink from pain. The one who doesn't apologize for depth. The one who knows that darkness is not the absence of God, but the place he hid his greatest treasures. And now you carry those treasures. In your voice, in your energy, in your presence. You are the prophecy fulfilled, the shadow embraced, the light revealed. And the world has been waiting for you.